You're listening to Dishonorable Mention on the 813 Area Podcast Network.
All right, let's do this.
So we're talking about Michael Cohen and the testimony he delivered today before Congress about the President of the United States. And the testimony was really interesting because there were a lot of people, there were a lot of bombshells in what he had to say, but there were a lot of people who were saying he shouldn't be believed. What is the case, Chris? Do we buy the bombshells or do we discredit Cohen as a convicted liar?
I think that he's. So I had a goal of not saying or huh today, and that lasted all of 10 seconds.
Well,
Michael Cohen.
Isn't that your life story?
That's neither here
You
nor
beat me
there.
to that, Becca. Thanks.
Michael Cohen spent a lot of time today bashing Trump, and the first question I would have for him is, if Trump was so bad, why did he work for him for 10 years? And I think there were some times today that what he said wasn't necessarily factual. He made a point where he said that he never tried to get a White House job, and there were reporters that said afterwards that they knew for a fact that he tried to get a White House job. Some of the evidence that he had against Trump was compelling. But, I think that, he certainly didn't do himself any favors by lying before. And it's hard to have sympathy for a guy like Michael Cohen. I certainly feel bad for his family. But, if Trump was so bad, he shouldn't have worked for him. He shouldn't have helped him become president. And so...
Carla, thoughts?
As I'm making the big thumbs down sign. All right. Well, I think you get what you pay for. So, I don't think that somebody who rolls that easily should be believed that easily, because I think he should have played a little cooler, honestly. Like, if that was me, or if I was advising a client, I wouldn't be so eager to roll, because I feel like the people who are eager to roll are the people who are not to be believed, honestly. So, I think...
You don't think like holding your cards has some value?
I don't think he has any cards to stand on, because he is done such a flip-flop. And it's not a flip-flop like, oh, I didn't think global warming existed, but then now I'm reading some books and now I think so. It's not that. It's not that kind of flip-flop. So I think I think it's a dog and pony show, and I think it's political theater, and I think it's cool. I'm here for every second of it. Make sure we understand. I am here for it. I think it's important. It's important for American culture. I think it's political drama that needs to be played out, but I don't hold weight in that. And I think he's an interesting political figure for the time, but I don't necessarily hold any weight to what he's saying. I think what we need to look at is a larger kind of political context and why this is allowed to play out, and how his testimony is going to be talked about, and how it's going to be, taken, whether it's seriously or unseriously. But I don't necessarily believe him. Does that make sense? I don't think the truth with the capital T necessarily matters at this moment. It's more of a kind of a political
and I think the
game.
truth can be somewhere in the middle between what he said today and what really happened. Some of the financial things that he had evidence for was compelling. Yeah. But and some of the things, he refuted some of the claims that were in the Steele dossier. For instance, he said today that he never has been to Prague. That may or may not be true, but there were other things where the Democrats had more damaging stuff on Trump, or they thought they had more damaging stuff on Trump, where he, made it clear that wasn't the case, and so I think that the truth is somewhere in between Michael Cohen and Donald Trump.
Conservatives are going to try to dismiss this Cohen's testimony as a farce. Do you think anything that is going to emerge from his testimony that's going to stick to the president, that's going to damage the president's reputation, or could even lead to some type of legal action against the president?
I don't know. Teflon Don has been pretty freaking solid and has, no accountability for anything. So there's no reason to think this would. be something he's held accountable to. But it was really interesting. Somebody tweeted out, they were like, oh, Michael Cohen used to be this bulldog lawyer and all this other stuff, talking about like basically the soul had been sucked out of him because, you know, and the weirdest thing was Donald Trump Jr. retweeted it.
Right. Yeah. And the other part of that tweet basically said he had nothing to lose. And so, you know, he was going to be truthful.
I feel like Don Jr. was kind of working a deal like, hey, guys, if you need somebody else, I got your back. It was just very odd. I don't know. The Michael Cohen thing, I think there's some truth in there.
But there's always truth in there. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that a lot of stuff Michael Cohen said is probably true. I don't think anything will come of it other than political theater. Like Carla said, we have Republicans who just grandstanded, and most of whom chose not to ask any questions, which I think is a disservice. I mean, they're there to ask the questions. Do I think all Democrats use their time in altruistic ways? Of course not. But I think that's part of the problem. Is what we don't know is so vast because the questions were not asked. And that's a failing of the representatives who were interviewing him, or shall I say not interviewing him.
Some feel like this could be the Democratic Party's first step to beginning impeachment proceedings. Jesus. This may surprise you guys. I don't want President Trump to be impeached. I want President Trump to be removed from the White House the same way he got in, through an election. I don't think it benefits the nation for an attempt to impeach him. And I don't think the Republican-controlled U.S. Senate would ever take the steps necessary to impeach the president. It's a two-step process. It's not just about the House. The Senate would also have to fulfill their role in making that happen. And as long as it's controlled by the Republican Party, it's never going to happen. I wish we could shelve this talk of impeachment. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, I agree. I don't think that there's really anything that Trump has done that has proven to be an impeachable offense. I think the only thing that's been proven is that he paid a porn star $130,000 and lied about it. The fact that he, you know, may have used campaign funds,
we prefer the term sex worker
would have
in the
been
industry.
A big deal. But the Democrats have already determined that sex is not an impeachable offense due to the blowjob in the White House in the late 90s.
Ouch.
So, and that was actually by an intern that was like 21 years old. So I don't think that, you know, while Trump may not, you know, be the most honest and ethical person, I don't.
He may not be.
Yeah, allegedly.
weird.
I just don't know what the impeachable offense is, because they haven't proved that there was collusion, and maybe Mueller, you know, has more evidence of that. And I think without seeing the Mueller report, it would be hard to determine whether or not there was an impeachable offense.
Well, I think you have to look at, besides impeachable offenses, and I don't think he should be impeached. I think impeachment is not good for a political party that's pushing it. And history has shown that, which is why Pelosi, every time the impeachment is brought up, she kind of, you know, shies away from that. So I think, I mean, we know that's not a good idea. And it takes these one chamber to impeach and the other to remove. And even if that happens, Hillary Clinton still doesn't become president. I don't think a lot of people really understand that.
Right.
But besides
You'd have
that,
Mike Pence, who understands Washington better than Donald Trump ever did, and I think would be more effective than Donald Trump in a lot of ways.
Effective in a really, really bad way. So I think we, you know, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know right now. So that's my opinion on that. But in terms of the whole porn star thing, and I prefer porn star to sex worker, because I think that porn stars refer to themselves as porn stars. And I think that's, you know, I mean, they are stars of their own films, and I think they should be respected for that. And I think it's kind of cool. Like, I don't know, like I'm not one, but not going to diss any woman or any man who's going to be in that profession. And if that's the path they want to choose, then more power to them. Like, you do you, right? So,
or your co-stars, as the case may be.
Or your co-stars can do you, whatever. I don't really care. But my point is, it's like, I think when you look at this case with Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump, you have to look at what is not necessarily impeachable, but what is blackmailable. And so when you look at security clearances and things like that, and you delve into someone's past, you look at things that would be subject to blackmail, like any sort of indiscretions, sexual indiscretions, any sort of, unfortunately, and it used to be the case, mental health issues, financial indiscretions, anything that a foreign government could use to hold over your head. So I think that's where I'm interested in the Stormy Daniels thing, not for the salaciousness, but for the idea that, okay, what if a foreign government could get a hold of this and then use it against the president? That's, for me, that's a big deal. And I think that's important.
Well, you should feel comfortable knowing that they don't have access to his tax returns. So we should be safe there.
Do they?
Yeah, I think that if there's anything with Donald Trump that is a serious issue, it's something financial. Through his tax returns, who he owes money to, where he was trying to do projects and things like that.
Yeah, and there may be some campaign improprieties. But I can tell you what is a serious issue, and that's the sideshow that is emerged from the Cohen testimony involving state Congressman Matt Gaetz from the state of Florida. He is being, the Florida bar is now investigating the tweet he posted prior to Cohen's testimony that is being interpreted by some as a threat against Cohen. He tweeted a statement that suggested Cohen had been hiding improper behavior from his wife and his father-in-law, and that was going to come out if he testified. What were your thoughts about that, Becca?
Well, I admit right off the jump that I have total bias, because if I had to rank all the public officials from best to worst, Matt Gaetz is swimming there on the bottom of the pile. I think he is, when we talk about deplorables, he is deplorable. He has said so many offensive and horrific things that I didn't think the tweet was that bad, but legal scholars do, and they do call it into question. I went to college in the Panhandle, and I would really implore my friends and family up there to please vote smarter next time, because he's a disgrace.
Yeah, it certainly was not professional, and another lesson about how people need to be careful on social media. We see this time and time again. People don't understand how much trouble you can get into with a Facebook post or with a tweet. Chris, how much trouble do you think Matt Gaetz is in?
Well, I should probably disclose that I know him. We served together for a couple years in the Florida House. So I've known him for 4 or 5 years, and he's always been a bit of a douche, and a frat boy. So I really don't have a lot of good things to say about him character-wise.
There are a lot of nice frat boys out there.
Well, there are.
I heard a rumor today he was actually blackballed from a fraternity at Florida State.
Well, good
that
for him.
Cannot be substantiated, but it is a good source.
I don't know about that. As for the tweet in question, I think he certainly was trying to intimidate Michael Cohen, and if Donald Trump told, Matt Gaetz to wear a Speedo and run down Pennsylvania Avenue, he would do it in a heartbeat, because he would do whatever Donald Trump said.
Yeah, but we don't want to see that.
No, that would be gross. We don't want that.
Yeah, he's terrible.
Yeah.
And I hate the way he sexualizes AOC. He basically rips apart and pretends he's this family values, hardcore conservative, gun zealot. But then he sexualizes somebody. I mean, you don't get to have it both ways. Either admit to the world that you're a scumbag or live in those values and stop. I think he's just a fraud.
Well, I mean, maybe it's a game to him, and the legislature, back when he was in the legislature, there was a game in the House where male members, and this was before I was elected and maybe the first year or two that I was up there, but it was documented by media, different media sites and whatnot, that based on who you slept with, you'd get points. So the bottom of the totem pole was lobbyists, aides, and interns. And I think interns was like third from the bottom. And then another member, you'd get like 5 points. A senator, you'd get 10 points. And a married senator, you'd get like 20 points. And so I think that the infatuation or whatever he has with AOC kind of, he probably views it as, in the same, lens as being a game and trying to have, a conquest of sorts. And that just goes right back into the, Matt Gaetz frat boy that I've known for several years.
Does anyone have anything good to say about Matt Gaetz?
Does anyone have anything good to say about fraternity men, which I think are actually of value to society in some situations?
I met my husband on a fraternity sorority mixer. So, but I understand that there is something to fraternity culture that does have a dark underbelly.
Agreed.
Of which Chris was referencing.
I think it's
fair.
Stereotypical, but stereotypes have an origin in some way. So yeah, sure.
Well, I think the reason we...
So the answer is no. We have nothing nice. This is Chris and I.
That's nice. We still don't like him.
I remember I did have a juvenile expungement bill that would have helped juveniles that were non-habitual and non-violent offenders have a second chance when they reached 21 instead of 24. It passed the House like 116-2. And he was one of the 2 people that voted against.
Oh, he really is. Nice.
But there's a lot. That's just how he is. He voted this past year or 2. He voted against the human trafficking bill in Congress. So he likes being different.
So, is there anything nice we can say about him besides that he's different? I'm gonna go with no. No.
I will say this. I thought Becca made a good point in asking that the electorate do a better job of electing people. And quite frankly, I look at a lot of candidates and wonder, how did these people get elected? We had a story break last week about the mayor in Port Richey.
Oh, Jesus.
Who
and I've known that guy.
Oh, my God.
For a while, too.
Who apparently...
He's always been a little...
He's a shit show.
Was a drug dealer, and the police had to raid him, and Governor DeSantis had to remove him from office. And I just kept wondering...
At the cops.
And he shot at the police. And I kept wondering, how did this guy get elected? And
have you ever been to Port Richey?
and this week, after he was removed from office, after he was arrested, after he shot at the police, several people in Port Richey stepped forward to defend him and insist that he was a good guy.
Yeah. The girl who did my makeup.
Just remarkable.
Yeah, the girl who did my makeup last weekend for the Green and Gold Gala was from Port Richey, and she said her parents know him, and he was a really nice guy, and she couldn't understand where this came from. So
I think it comes back to the fact that he doesn't have a livable wage, and sometimes they have to take a second job because legislators are not highly paid.
About 10 or 12 years ago, I worked with some candidates that were running for the Port Richey City Council, and their whole platform was to dissolve the city. And it would have been like the second time in Florida history that would have happened. Unfortunately, a couple of them won, and then they decided they liked being politicians, and so they were unsuccessful in dissolving the city. But
You remain optimistic.
Wow, I want them just to elect better people. I didn't want to wipe out the city, man. What are we saying?
The more
Ernest,
you know.
Have you ever been to Port Richey?
I didn't even know for sure there was a Port Richey. I just knew about New Port Richey.
Wait, Port Richey is different than New Port Richey?
Yeah, no,
Yes.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, it's a couple traffic lights down on 19 past Newport Richey.
Nah.
Should
Yeah,
we
right
remind
before you hit
everybody
Hudson.
again that Carla's a 5th generation Floridian. I'm a 4th
Not
generation.
north of Kennedy.
Apparently doesn't know our way
Too
around.
bougie for Newport Richey. I'm sorry. Or Port Richey. Like, sorry.
There's also
Yeah, we don't go
Hudson
there.
I've been to Hudson before.
and
I
Moon
think
Lake.
Hudson is nice, actually. Hudson is
may
nice.
be better than Port Richey. I lived in Pasco like 2005 to 2008, I think. And at the time, there was still an active KKK in Moon Lake. I don't know if it's still there.
I believe that. I believe that, yeah.
Ahead and say
Moon Lake's another.
Yeah, I do believe that. But otherwise, I mean, in terms of like nature and trails and rivers and things like that, it's very peaceful. Other than the crazy people.
Somebody showed Carla a brochure.
Have
She
you
sure as
seen?
heck hasn't been
Have
there.
you seen Live PD, the Pasco version? Just watch Live
like
PD.
cops?
Yeah, they have Pasco like every week. Friday and Saturday nights, Spike TV.
So what do you all think? Which crowd is a little more wild or out of sorts? Is it Pasco or is it Polk? Pasco or Polk County?
Polk is, now,
Madison?
I have lived in Polk County. Polk County Imperial Polk County is a different place. I want you to know. It's hard to put my finger on exactly what makes Polk County tick, but I can assure you, you haven't been somewhere until you have gone and lived in Imperial Polk County.
How would you compare Polk County to Lake County? Because I believe that's where Denine's from.
Gosh.
Madison is from Polk County. She was rescued from Polk County Animal Control, which is why she barked when you said that.
Thank you for transitioning to some other topic, Carla. 'cause
Anytime.
We're
You
not
got it.
talking about Deneen or Lake County.
She's so lovely. Whatever happened to her?
I did start my career in Lake County at the Daily Commercial in Leesburg, Florida. So I am familiar with the inner workings of Lake County. It too is a different place, but not quite like Polk County.
Yeah, they're both pretty special. I think we're all happy that we're in Pinellas and Hillsborough, respectively. Now, talking about your journalism career, how do you think journalism has changed from your vantage point since you first started?
Oh, it's changed tremendously. When I started in journalism, we had this terrific business model where we weren't just printing the paper, we were printing money. And the internet came along and crippled our business model. I mean, first of all, Craigslist comes along and basically guts 60% of the newspaper industry's revenue because people no longer had to purchase classified ads. And then we discover the internet. We start putting our content on the internet, but no one bothers to tell us that we should be charging for it. And so it gives life to Facebook and social media because those are driven by the content that we were given for free. And we've never really been able to recover from any of that. We're trying, we're taking some steps. And as you know, the Times over the last couple of weeks has reinstituted its paywall and asked our readers to pay a monthly fee so that we can reap some kind of revenue from our digital offerings. And so far, some people have complained, but a lot of people have stepped up to support good journalism, and we need that support now more than ever.
So how many of y'all have subscribed?
I have not.
Oh, Christopher.
Well, I was a subscriber.
He was in Tallahassee.
I was a subscriber to the Times until they said that I was immoral because I opposed Medicaid expansion, and they had the big immoral majority. So I got ticked off, and I canceled my subscription. I do buy the Monday edition to read Ernest's column.
Thank you.
And
now that you know it's on Mondays because he corrected you last time.
And Sundays. No, I used to read Ernest online, but I can't do that anymore because the paywall.
You are such a fraud. You just said you canceled the Times because they said something bad about you, but you get so mad at Democrats when they boycott a business because they don't like what they do.
They had one editorial where they called us immoral. They also had another editorial where they called us the disciples of darkness because we opposed a policy that they didn't agree with.
I kind of like
And one
that.
of their biggest advertisers was hospitals.
Ooh.
They literally had a hospital ad in the same version of the newspaper.
That should have been our
So-
podcast name.
Disciples of Darkness.
Disciples of
It
Darkness
is
would have
kind
been
of cool
badass.
if you think about it.
Yeah, I want to be a disciple of darkness.
You know,
How do
the
I get that
Ernest
gig?
Hoopers, the Mark Tompkins, those guys I like reading.
I just find it hilarious that you're talking about your personal boycott when you mock me all the time when you're like, you Democrats get it so wrong. You get mad at a company and won't buy their products anymore. You go lay in their aisles.
But it wasn't that I still read it. I just didn't buy it. So,
But it's the same thing, like not pushing the dollar when we weren't spending money at Publix because they were giving the NRA lover too much cash. You openly mocked that.
Okay, Disney also gave the NRA lover a lot of cash. And when did y'all boycott Disney?
Never.
I don't go to
They
Disney.
actually gave Disney more money to Adam Putnam than Publix did.
Yeah, true.
Was it equitable across candidates though? Don't they dump money into everybody?
They do.
So does Publix.
But
Like
was
all
it,
of those
but
big
was it
companies
equitable?
give people. Why does it have to be equitable?
Because it makes a difference. If you're like buying in, it's like a movie ticket.
I was not an Adam Putnam fan, and I've never been an Adam Putnam fan, but the whole Publix boycott thing was stupid. Where are you going to go? Winn-Dixie? You got to buy groceries somewhere.
We don't like Winn-Dixie. We live south of Kennedy.
Oh, there's Whole Foods.
I like it all. I go to about 17
I'm not paying
grocery stores.
$12 for a pineapple. I'm sorry.
I was at Whole Foods this week. I shop at Aldi. I love Trader Joe's. I shop
I love
at
Trader
Publix.
Joe's. I like Aldi.
I am your domestic.
But if you're really
stereotype.
from here, you love Publix. And, when I taught in the Midwest, I was always telling my kids, when you come down for spring break, you have to get a pub sub. Like, you have to. And they would come back and next week and they'd be like, oh my God, we love Publix. Publix is so great. Because what do they have? It's gross. It's like Hy-Vee or Kroger or some gross shit like that. Like, we have
Harris
a nice
Teeter's
Publix.
the bomb.
They
Harris
don't have
Teeter is
that.
loved.
Yeah, but they don't have that there in the Midwest.
I wish I was on that family
Yeah, we don't
money
have that.
line.
Yeah, like Wagmans, Harris Teeter. That's different. That's like a different tier.
I do
I'm talking like Kroger or Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee's disgusting.
Back to the Times.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure. Go for
I
it.
do think they play an important role, especially since the Tampa Tribune is no longer in existence. People in Tampa Bay need to have a good source, and as an elected official, I realize times they do have an important role to play. And as an elected official, I recognize the importance of a free media, free being a non-censored deal. They're not the enemy of the people. At times I get ticked off at them, just like I'd get ticked off at other versions of the media. But anytime they call me, I still talk to them. I talk to Jeff Solacek a lot, who's their education reporter, and so it. I hope that they are successful. I hope that they stay around Tampa Bay for a long time, because I don't think that, people in Tampa Bay should necessarily get their news from a blogger who has all kinds of conflicts of interest.
Yeah, every community deserves a good newspaper, an independent newspaper. And, we're determined to maintain that despite all the challenges that we're having. Becca, what do you think? Are you on board with your digital subscription?
You know what? I'm going to subscribe right now. Here it goes. It's going to happen right
nice.
here.
Do it.
Nice.
How much is it?
He said it was $8 a month.
That's not too bad. That's only like the cost of the Sunday issues, and Sunday's $2 now.
Speaking of which, I just went to the homepage and they are addressing the United Methodist Church's decision. What do y'all think about that?
What was their decision?
Well, the United Methodist Church had a huge international conference over the past couple of days, and the debate centered around how they should treat LGBTQ members, and should they allow their ministers to perform same-sex marriages, and should they allow ministers, LGBTQ ministers. And the United Methodist Church voted against that. They are not going to sanction same-sex marriages, and they are not going to allow people from the gay community to be ministers. And really, in 2019, that decision surprised me. I was looking for the United Methodist Church to send a more progressive signal, to send a greater signal of inclusion. And I was a bit stunned that they chose to go in a different direction. They actually, according to one report, doubled down on their ban from people from that community. Carla, was that the right decision?
I mean, they're a private organization, so they can do whatever they want. But I mean, I'm not a fan because I think they should be inclusive. And with the rate of people dropping the Methodist Church right now, I don't think they can afford to lose many more people. So strategically, I think it's a bad decision. But I mean, it's a private organization, so they can do whatever they want.
Sure.
And I feel like if that's not the church for you, then you should go someplace where it's more welcoming and more ethical, and they should suffer the consequences.
Yeah, one thing that should be noted is that we have a younger generation that is moving away from organized religion. Organized religion's numbers in terms of millennials and Gen Zers is on the decline. Their future is really in question, and I think it's in question because of this embrace of condemnation. And I don't think, I think young people remain spiritual. I think they remain faithful, but they're not interested in being part of an organization that's not going to be inclusive and welcoming to their friends. Becca, what was your reaction to the United Methodist Church's decision?
It made me sad. I have the privilege of being a part of a congregation that is very inclusive and welcoming. So from an organizational standpoint, I find it disappointing. But I think the right decision, which was one of the things they discussed, was to let each church and their governing bodies make their own decisions. And I think when you make a clergy, you swear them in or whatever happens to make you a member of clergy, you should empower them to show and teach the love of God the best they know how. And that may include marrying same-sex couples. And I think that you have to be present for your community. There was also lots of communities from other continents, which is really what swayed the vote. It wasn't really the American folks. It was more international that really gave the pushback, and they are not in the same place culturally that we are. And so while I still think it's absolutely bigoted and wrong, you kind of have to meet some people where they are. And I think a compromise would have been far more reasonable.
Yeah, no doubt compromise would have been better. And every community is different. And had they given churches that license to kind of determine what their congregation wants, what their community wants, it would have been a much better call. But, we can only hope that, we don't regress and revert back to a time where there wasn't greater acceptance and greater inclusion of people from the LGBTQ community. And the point I always like to make is that, we have a lot of Christians who purport to be pro-life. If you're pro-life, then you need to find a way to support particularly LGBTQ teens who are struggling with trying to figure out who they are and find their place in society. And we've seen suicide rates rise among that population, and they need a safe place and they need support and they need to know that it gets better for them. And if we're not sending that message, I think we're doing them a disservice. And now I'm going to get off my soapbox and let somebody else do some preaching.
So did y'all see that the WrestleMania is coming to Tampa next year?
That was you were so filled with joy about that. It made me so happy.
Now, back to what Ernest was talking about. I am a Christian. I'm not a Methodist. I'm more probably affiliated with the Baptist congregation. But I differentiate between being a Christian and being a politician. From the politician standpoint, I do not believe that the LGBT community should be discriminated against. I've co-sponsored bills in the legislature, whether it's the Competitive Workforce Act or or giving them the ability to be foster parents or adopt and so forth. So I have strong beliefs in that they should be treated just like anybody else. But as a Christian, I wouldn't attend a church that had an LGBT minister, and that's just a personal belief that I have. I have many LGBT friends that I love dearly. I've never attended any of their weddings. Matter of fact, I've never, been invited to a gay wedding. But even if I was,
we need to get that fixed.
but I don't know if I would. And it's different between supporting them and loving them and endorsing. And I've tried to explain that to some of my friends. Like, I love them dearly. They should not be fired for who they love or what they do in their bedroom. They should not be discriminated against when they try to get a hotel or apartment or a house.
Or apply to a charter school. I don't think we should ever discriminate, and there should be an anti-discrimination policy on all schools that receive state dollars.
Agreed.
And
Love you. Agreed.
No, I respect your opinion. I strongly disagree with it, but I respect and I appreciate the fact that you're honest and that you aren't trying to sugarcoat it or sell it any other way than from your truth.
And I'm totally ditching my husband and taking you as my date to my next gay wedding that I go to. Like, for shizzle, you're coming with me. Sorry, Fran.
I don't know if Fran the man would like that too.
How many
He don't
ways
care.
can we make Chris uncomfortable? He go out with a married woman to a same-sex wedding. What else can you do? Can you buy
my
some-
best friend is
some
going to
meth
get
on the
married.
way?
No, my best friend is going to get married probably in Scotland. It's going to be amazing. Shout out to Greg and Jamie. And it's going to be amazing. You should come with me.
I had a very dear friend that when he came out of the closet, I pretty much acknowledged that I knew that he was gay, and but I loved him anyways. He got married, but he didn't invite me, and I don't. And we knew each other through church, and so I don't know if he just didn't want to put me in that position or what. I think that we've definitely advanced as a society in terms of discriminatory issues, and I also think as a Christian, a lot of the same-sex issues, gay marriage and things like that, we're in the minority belief on. I think when you look at other social issues like abortion, I think abortion is very much a 50-50 issue. And I think in late-term abortions, I think the pro-life crowd is heavily in the majority of. But in terms of gay marriage and gay rights and things like that, I think that that's a completely different matter, and I think that's a battle that's been waged and lost in a lot of ways from the conservative Christian standpoint. And I'll also say that the conservative Christian groups in Tallahassee are not a fan of me, like John Stenberger's group and other groups, because I supported the gay rights bills, the Competitive Workforce Act, the gay adoption bills, and others. So.
I guess I just don't understand. And again, I come from a congregation that teaches God is love and we're all children of God. And I'm not saying that one doctrine is right. I'm just saying that's the form of organized religion that I was raised in and how I was taught to treat people. I don't understand how any religion can say we are all children of God, created in God's image, but some of you, it's like a ranking system. And I guess it just doesn't, it feels so, that's what feels unnatural to me. Not gay couples, but the fact that we rank humans on how much value they have.
And I don't really see that. No, and I'd have to disagree with you from that standpoint. When you look at Jesus's life in the New Testament, like he was friends.
Chris, we stop at the end of the Old Testament.
I know that you're more of an Old Testament fan.
A little bit.
But yeah,
really, why
just
is that?
a little bit. But when you look at his life, he was friends with the outcasts. Some of his dear friends I think that, if he were walking the streets today, he would be friends with the LGBT people.
No, he would have no friends. If Jesus was walking the streets today, he would have no friends. None, because people aren't like that anymore, and people are mean to each other, and they stay in their own cliques, and they demonize people who are different than them.
Because he's a refugee, and we wouldn't let him in.
We would totally not let him in. He wouldn't have any friends. He would pretty much be screwed. So
no, seriously, go back, because I know you appreciate your spiritual.
No. I mean, I just like he the people that he despised the most were the quote unquote religious people. The preachers that would talk about how holy they were or how much money they would give in the offering plate. That really the only time that he got mad and really furious was when people, were selling things in the temple and he was overturning tables and yelling and, things like that. And so and a lot of the times in the Bible when it talked about homosexuality, it lumped it together with other sins, adultery, lusting, and so forth. So really, it's being a homosexual is not the unpardonable sin. It would be just the same as if I looked at a woman in a non-pure manner.
You want to go there, really?
Which I, may have been guilty of before. So it's not
Before.
like I'm not any better than a LGBT person. And I don't claim to be. And I think a lot of Christians would have that same, attitude.
But you deserve to get married if you want to.
And I never said that they didn't deserve to get married. I just said that
you
I
just don't want LGBT. You wouldn't feel comfortable with an LGBT clergy member.
Right. I mean,
Okay.
I don't care if they.
misinterpreted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't care if they're members of my church or if they attend my church, but I don't know if I would have them as like the leader of my church that I went to. If they want to be a leader of another church, have at it. But that's not really my, doctrinal, beliefs.
I appreciate your candor, man.
I do too.
I really do.
I totally get
really
that.
do.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I love about Chris is that he, even if it would be much easier to give some sugar-coated 30-second slick politician Matt Gaetz kind of answer, and that's just not the guy he is. He knows he's not perfect, but he is honest and he's genuine, and I really respect
Send
that.
your hate mail to Ernest Hooper.
Look, I am ditching my husband for a wedding in Ireland for you,
was to
so
Scotland.
maybe we should
Apparently it's
rethink this whole thing. Scotland. It's Ireland or Scotland. I forget which one. Honestly, I forget which one.
Very happy for Greg, by the way.
I'm very happy for Greg and Jamie. They're lovely. Shout out to Greg and Jamie. But I mean, I don't know which one. I just get it confused all the
Need to
time.
go, man.
Yeah.
And so now, welcome to our new segment here at Dishonorable Mention. I'm Colin. I'm the producer. And I've been sitting here putting down the questions that I think you folks might want to ask after this. But to get rid of this segment, I have one way to do so. Put your comments on our Facebook page and ask some questions, and we'll be able to get those out. And we'll do a little reader feedback mail question thing that we can title out later. But here are my questions.
There's one question we will not answer.
Which is, where's Deneen? Where's Deneen? Where's Deneen is not an acceptable question, and will probably get you blocked from the Facebook page. So, first question. You guys all pretty much, I think except for Becca, said you did not want Donald Trump to be impeached because you didn't think what he has done has reached the level of an impeachable offense. Today, Michael Cohen brought a check and put it on an overhead projector, just like when you were in 6th grade at algebra class. And it was a canceled check signed by the president of the United States while he was president, paying him off for him paying off an adult film actress. That is a felony. It is a campaign finance violation. The president of the United States committing a felony while in office. Why is this not enough to impeach him?
Well, again, I didn't say he hasn't done anything that is not impeachable. I just don't think it would be good for the nation to see Congress attempt to impeach him. I think it would create greater rancor, greater disharmony, and in the end, the people who would try to implement that process would not succeed in getting what they want.
Well, and let's be honest. This is a man, a rich, white, privileged man. I mean, have they not suffered enough? Can we not create a space for them to succeed in this country? I mean, come on.
On next week's episode, Becca will talk about what privileged mean.
But if we're not good, you cannot have, and I think this would be a fair question, that you cannot have the process of impeachment be for when high crimes and misdemeanors are committed. And I didn't even get to the fact that apparently he knew about Roger Stone according to the testimony today, that he knew that Roger Stone had been in contact with WikiLeaks. That is collusion. WikiLeaks, Russian organization. I'm just saying.
That's still so hard to prove. Number one, and it's a political impeachment is a political process. It's not a legal process.
Right.
You can still be impeached and not be removed.
Correct.
So
As
it's
Bill
like,
Clinton
and you
was.
can still be committed of a crime or convicted of a crime and still not be impeached.
The one group that I think would benefit from an impeachment attempt of Donald Trump would be the Republican Party. I think that an attempted impeachment would backfire big time on the Democrats, just like it did in the late 90s on the Republicans when they spent $40 million.
And conservatives are already touting today's the Cohen testimony as an attempt by the Democrats to ignite an impeachment proceeding. And they're doing that because they're trying to galvanize conservatives to get out and support a re-election of President Trump. And we don't need that.
You know what's in my head? As soon as they said WikiLeaks, I'm like, oh, wiki whack. It's like, that's all I can think about. Mostly because I have surrendered the fact that Donald Trump is going to be here and is in our sphere. But, I'm just blessing and releasing it. I mean, he ruined the Hall of Presidents, and that may be the greatest crime of all.
You do like Disney. Oh, so you do like Disney. Actually, something? I bought the last Tervis tumbler at Disney in the America Pavilion at Epcot, which I go to every weekend, without his face on it.
Bravo.
The last week before the inauguration, I was like, I gotta stock up on this because this is not something I want to carry around.
Next question, Chris, why did you oppose Medicare expansion?
The budget impact that it would have had on future legislatures in Florida. And we're basically would be giving poor people bad insurance because Medicaid is not good insurance to start with. And so I'm a fan of, many Republicans, of competition when it comes to healthcare and also transparency when it comes to healthcare.
90% of that expansion was paid for by the federal government. Why is putting up 10% to give poor people bad insurance as opposed to no insurance about it?
That was 90% at the time, and the president then was Obama. And I don't believe that the Trump administration would have continued paying for it. And so it would have been Florida on the hook. And there has been other states that have suffered adverse effects on their budget. And in Florida, we have a very good budget standing. We have very good bond ratings with the different bond rating agencies. And we also, unlike other states and unlike the federal government, we have a balanced budget amendment in Florida. And so we always have to have a balanced budget.
You also said, while we pick on Chris, I'll make the last one easy.
What the hell, Chris?
We're going to pick on the second one too. You said you have no problem with a gay congregation, you have gay friends, you haven't been invited to a gay wedding, but you would attend one. But you would feel uncomfortable with a gay minister. What's the difference between a gay minister and a black minister? Because they're both sort of born with the same genetic issue. Like, you're either born black or you're not born black. You're either born gay or you're not born gay. You accept that, first of all, that gay is not a choice. It's sort of a genetic predisposition. You're either born gay or you're not.
Yeah, I do believe that it's something that you're born with. I think just like, if you're born attracted to a, woman, that, you could be born attracted to a man. I would disagree with that it's the same as being black and being gay.
What's the difference?
Well, in the Christian faith, one would be considered a sin, the other one wouldn't.
Do you think that if you're born gay, though, so you should just live a chaste life if you want to live by the word of the Lord?
Can't you just apologize? Don't you just get to apologize? But see, isn't that the sweet deal about Christianity? You have to be like, I'm sorry, and then you're forgiven.
Yeah, but
and I'm not mocking Christianity.
But the whole point of repenting is not just asking for forgiveness, but changing your ways. I mean, there's things that I do that I know they're wrong. I still do it, and I shouldn't do it. But I think it would be just the same as having, because in the Bible, ministers are held to a very higher standard. They're not just a typical Christian. It's like they're like leading the flock. And so it would be the same as having a pastor that is doing something that they know is wrong, like i.e. having, relations with somebody that's not their wife, whether, if they're not married or something to that effect. So they're still, or if they're, committing another financial misdeeds or, the other long list of different sins they are. And so it's not, just because you're gay doesn't mean that, that you're a subpar citizen.
Would it be fair to say that you're reducing homosexuality to sexual acts that are based on a choice or whether or not you act on that?
I don't believe that being attracted to somebody of the same sex that's not a sin in my book. And I don't believe that that's a sin in the Bible, because I don't believe that being tempted by something is a sin. Jesus was tempted by the devil. And I didn't realize we were going to get into a Bible study, but here we are.
Here we are.
I think when you, just like if you are attracted to somebody of the opposite sex, that's not sinful. It's when you actually do the act and do the deeds, and that's what makes it sinful.
I just thought what your conversation I thought was extremely interesting and extremely honest, and I thought it was really cool. And I just wanted to sort of like clarify why you thought the way you did. That was really good, though. So also, Chris, is while we're here, we did briefly mention that WrestleMania is coming.
I'm excited about that. It's
April 5th, 2020.
That's a big deal for Tampa Bay. It's almost like having the Super Bowl here for a week long. We're going to have wrestlers and the Hall of Fame, the WWE Hall of Fame.
Raw and SmackDown the weekend after.
And they all live here, so Hulk Hogan will be around, and John Cena and Titus O'Neil, our favorite wrestler for the podcast, and others.
I will share with you that there was some debate within the confines of the Tampa Bay Times about where did that story fit. Is it a sports story or is it an entertainment story?
So
and there was some debate like, is it sports? It's not really sports. Is it entertainment? Like, who should be trying to write about this story?
I think it's both.
Yeah. So ESPN does cover the WWE now. So they've had an agreement before. I think it can, but as Vince always calls it, it's sports entertainment. So it sort of does cross that threshold. And an event that this big, I mean, this is a community event. This is an event. The one in New Orleans last year had $175 million of economic impact. It's going to fill every hotel from the coast all the way out to Plant City. You're going to have events all week long. The history of wrestling in Tampa is massive.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going back to the JCC on Howard was originally the Armory.
The Ford Homer Hesterly Armory.
The American Dream.
Yes.
Becca pops up when I say JCC.
And that's the old site of when my dad was in the reserves. That was his station point.
Yeah, the Armory.
And the Sportatorium, which is like a couple blocks over from there, which was like home of championship wrestling of Florida, and guys like Ric Flair and Lex Luger and Gordon Solie. I mean, if you are a wrestling guy, this is kind of the town. And so to have that all come back home, I just really want to see the WWE find a way to honor that heritage while they're here, to make it more of a flashback, to talk about some of the, yes, is it guys in tights and baby oil, and it's all predicted? Absolutely.
And since
you got Becca's attention when you said guys in tights and baby oil.
since we
All
are
guys' attention when you say guys in tights and baby oil.
Titus says that when he introduces himself all the time. He's like, I rode around in baby oil.
Since we are talking about different confessions and whatnot, I may have attended WrestleMania a couple years ago when it was in Orlando, and it is a very big deal for the city and area that it's in. And I believe the year after that, we have the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we're going to that. We got the Women's Final Four coming up in April as well, which is another great event for Tampa. I know they're chasing a couple more out there too, but there's no better place now to do this because you've got all of these downtown hotels. By the time WrestleMania is here, I think the JW Marriott might be up too.
It will be.
The new, we've got all the boutiques running around downtown. It's really good time for the city to get these events. And it's going to be a hell of a lot.
I thought we had WrestleMania already.
I don't
Like
think
I
It has
thought
not been to
we
Tampa.
right, but I'm
I
saying
think
like
it's
I
been in
grew up.
Orlando twice.
Orlando twice and Miami once. It's going to, or it's not going back to Miami. It's Orlando twice and
Okay.
Miami. But Miami gets the next Super Bowl, and then
I just think because we have so many people who live here that do that, and I grew up with a lot of people that did that. I just in my mind we just did this all the time, so
Right.
I didn't know why it was such a big deal, and I'm happy we have it in our cities.
And I remember exactly where I was during WrestleMania 3 when Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant. And I was a very excited 5 or 6 year old little Hulkamaniac.
90,000 people in the Pontiac Silverdome. I mean, that's what really sort of launched this thing into becoming the event that it is now. So huge big win for the city. Excited to see it. All right. Those are all, that's all that I heard that I thought should be. But if you guys want to get me off this podcast, which you probably should.
Ernest, you want to sing us a tune?
Yeah.
Ooh, let's
Go
do
drop
it.
drop us
Sing
a
a
line on
tune.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Do you remember the 21st night of September?
So during the last election in the summer, there was a group that started in Florida that I joined called the Conservatives on the Right Side of Equality. They had an event in Tampa that I attended. Jackie Toledo was there. Dana Young was there. Victor Christ, I believe Sandy Merman, Akash Patel. The Times wrote about it. And Amber Mariano, I believe. And one of the things that
Don't give it all away, Chris. Make them pay to be a member of the Times community and look
you
the article
gotta
up.
pay your $8 to see who was there. And also make sure you read Ernest Hooper because that's all I'm saying.
That's all I'm saying. Thank you.